Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Craven Studio Shop Talk. It's been a little while. We've had some issues with the video recording, but we're getting there. I'm also working on making it a little nicer, trying to learn how to do some After Effects, maybe put some lower thirds down there, and make things a little more polished for you. But given that it's convention season and that everybody's running around and pitching things to publishers and trying to get some playtime with their games and see other people's games, I thought this video would be timely and that we should talk a little bit about pitching and sell sheets, in particularly sell sheets. Now, one of the things about sell sheets is that technically this is your game's first appearance at eyes and getting a publisher to look at it. So when you think about a sell sheet, that is really your first impression. That's the first impression for your game. And it needs to be kind of good. It doesn't have to be spectacular or perfect, but there's a few things you want to do and a few things you do not want to do on a sell sheet. The other thing that I want to talk a little bit about is your presentation, your style, you. We've all been to gaming conventions. We've all seen people that are walking around that probably haven't showered since the previous week, and they bought their ticket. They're going to get their 4 days of 24-hour-a-day gaming in. That shouldn't be you if you are pitching a game to a publisher. While it's a hobby industry, it is still a professional industry. And when you go and pitch a game to a publisher like that, you need to be professional. You need to put your best foot forward. I would tend to think of a pitch session to a publisher, even if it's speed dating. Think of it as a job interview. You are there to have your game interviewed by the publisher for a potential job. And like any other job interview, you are also there to interview them. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them their release schedule. If you were to take on my game, about when would you be looking at it in your release schedule if you took it on. So you have the right to ask questions as well. But as has been said probably thousands of times now, be careful who you pitch to and pitch to the right people. It's great for you to get a lot of pitches in. You increase your odds of someone really liking your game and taking it on. However, if you work to the point where you're pitching to so many people that you're bound to start pitching the game to the wrong people. And like if you go to HABA, for example, don't pitch a heavy 3.5 hour Euro game to HABA. That doesn't fit their line. By the same token, don't pitch a children's game to Fantasy Flight. Well, perhaps. But do your homework. And this goes across the board. From the very inception of your game, if you're doing a theme-based game, do your homework on the theme. Make sure you understand the context of the theme and you can talk about it if someone asks you. By the time you get to the point of pitching to a publisher, you should have your stuff pretty much done. Pretty much have your ducks in a row. So be able to discuss it. There's been several times when you've heard people say you should play as many games as you can as a designer, and that is very, very true. I've heard a few people out in the industry that said, I don't want those other games to influence my design or to influence my design strategy or to possibly, make me duplicate something. And that's fine. That's an understandable way to look at it. But by the same token, the more you expose yourself to that type of game, the more you'll realize what you like and don't like and what people like and don't like. And then you can focus on the parts that you and the people do like and not worry too much about the ones you don't. By the time you've gotten all that worked out, if a publisher asks you, so you're pitching a pirate game, is this one like Broadsides and Boarding Parties? Is it like Emergence of Marauders? Is it like Skull and Bones? You need to know if it is. You need to be able to understand if what you just created is like that. If you can't, You may have just reinvented Merchants and Marauders, right? So be careful about that, because that simple question, if someone says, so this seems like it's a lot like Merchants and Marauders with some added war mechanics in it. If you can't say, yeah, kind of, and that was my inspiration for the game, and I based it on X, Y, and Z features of Merchant Marauders. Or if you say, oh, sorry, I've never played Merchants and Marauders or Skull and Bones, Rum and Bones or anything. That's going to tell the publisher something about you, okay? So make sure you've done your homework. Be prepared when you go to these things. Have your sell sheet ready. Have your business card ready. No joke. I mean, a lot of people will have, you've got a business card, use it, right? By the same token, you may want to make a poker card, deck of poker cards of your business cards or something. Yeah, make them stand out, make them unique. But have your sell sheets and have them in order. Come dressed appropriately. And I mean appropriately, not in a suit and tie, unless you are pitching a mafia game or a heavy business game and you want to look the part and add some theme to it, great. Do keep in mind, though, that publishers, they may change the theme of your game. Don't take offense to that. They have a lot of experience in this. They have a lot of game development resources, a lot of art resources. So when you pitch your game to them, they may look at it and go, you know what, this is a great seafaring game and there's a lot of animal pirate combat in here, but I'll bet if we change it to a space theme, we could get much more audience or much more believable or go a little crazier with the ideas. So don't be offended if someone wants to change your theme. And that's not to say you shouldn't add a theme to your game or you shouldn't commit to one. Absolutely. But just be open to the idea that things are going to change. Nothing a publisher says to you is designed to offend you on a personal level. They see a lot of these. And a lot of them are unsolicited, which isn't a great idea. You should make contact with a publisher first, try to get to know them, ask them a few questions, try to establish a relationship either online or at a convention or emailing them. Don't just make the first thing you do say, hello, to whom it may concern, I am submitting my sell sheet for your consideration. When can we sign a contract? You won't get anywhere doing that. Okay, so be personable. Try to establish a relationship. It helps if you are familiar with their game line and can discuss it, but don't waffle on too long because, especially at a speed dating event, you're only going to have 5 minutes to pitch your game. The sell sheet, though, that is where your game is dressed up in its best suit. It needs to have its best dress on. So when you do this, think about how you want to create that sell sheet and the impression you want to give that publisher when you start out. An 8.5 by 11 or an A4 sheet of paper with 3 paragraphs on it, written like a college essay, is not a sell sheet. That's something for a rule book. A sell sheet primarily has to be eye-catching. It has to convey what the game is in as few words as possible, in my opinion. You don't want to see a wall of text. Just like a good website or a good ad or anything like that, a wall of text turns people off. Graphics gives them the impression of the game. A picture literally is worth 1,000 words in these cases. For example, if you look at this sell sheet from the game Santorini, the game is the hero of the sheet. You see the game itself and the building of the buildings in Santorini. Not a lot of text there. That text just highlights the salient points and gets the hook across, so you know what you're dealing with. By the same token, that might not be what you want. If you look at this one of Flux over here, well, it's mostly about text. The game's just a little picture in there, but it works. The background, the logo are good. It's eye-catching. The quote from Looney Labs there is pretty nice. But you want to make sure that what you do here catches their attention. Because that way you can get into the meat. Now, you don't want to put so much information on there that they don't need to talk to you anymore. The way I like to look at it, a sell sheet is there to give them enough information to what they know what they are dealing with, while still inviting them to ask questions, or even requiring them to ask a few questions. Not about basic data, not about player count, time, etc. That's not necessary. They need to know what they're dealing with, the hook, basic component count, so they can get an idea in their head about how much this is going to cost to produce. Now, sell sheets look fancy. They're not hard to get started with. In fact, on the League of Game Makers, Laurie's written a couple articles. He did one in 2014 and one in 2015 about sell sheets. In fact, the link's down there if you want to go down and click on it. While you're down there, you can click on the subscribe button. That would be awesome too. But it gives you some hints and tips on what to do. Some examples of sell sheets from that article are Prism and the garden game here. Garden Masters, sorry. So look at those. Look at the sell sheets. It doesn't hurt to have a graphic designer look at your sell sheet. Now, if you aren't a graphic designer, you really need to consider getting someone with a professional eye to at least give you some advice on how to put this thing together. Use ones that are already out there. Try not to use generic things. For example, in the one for Garden Masters, right? If you look at the one from Garden Masters, there is some dot points on there. And those dot points are actually like the ones in Word, the 4 diamonds in Word. If somebody looks at a word processor day in and day out, that long list of dot points looks like it was just dropped in from Word. Now, admittedly, you might be using Word or Acrobat DC or something to create your sell sheets, and you're going to have these kind of dot points. But if you're going to make the dot a graphic, come up with a new one or try to find something unique for it. Even if you need to use one of the pieces of art from your game and shrink it down to the size of a dot and put the highlights in there, use that. Okay. Something else that came up in one of our forums recently that you really do not want to do in your sell sheet is use somebody else's graphics or somebody else's logo, especially if it's not related to the game, and really especially if you didn't get their permission to do it. That's basically illegal. Using their logo and their imagery without their permission in a commercial, what is becoming a commercial sell sheet. So be real careful about that. By the time you're at the point of having a sell sheet, you should have some art done. Now, I am not saying you need to go out and spend thousands of dollars on art. Clip art, public domain art, Creative Commons art, that's fine. Just make sure that it's not somebody else's copyrighted art that you're using on the sell sheet. I saw a sell sheet that had somebody else's logo as a background. It happened to be an image that they use in some of their work as a background. That instantly turned me off because it speaks to character. If nothing else, it speaks to character. And the publisher needs to know they're working with someone of integrity. All right? So the other thing that I've seen a lot of people leave off of sell sheets is contact information for themselves. You have a nice looking sell sheet, you've got good graphics, it's laid out professionally, but you don't include a business card or don't have a business card, or it was lost somewhere, and then nobody knows how to contact you. Yeah, they could probably look it up. Maybe you've got it on Board Game Geek and they can contact you through Geek Mail or something. That's a lot of effort. And to be honest, because publishers see so many of these, you need to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes and want to do business with you. So having your information at the bottom of that sell sheet is very important. Another thing, I wouldn't make your logo or your company's logo bigger than the game logo. They're here to look at the game. They'll learn who you are and talk to you if they decide to do business with you. That game has got to be the hero. And you have to convey how cool that thing is in as little information as possible. It's one of those things, you need to have enough information in there to get the job done, but not too much. And that's going to take some practice. And the best way to find that practice is to look at tons of sell sheets. You'll know what's good and what's not. You'll get an eye for it. In fact, there's a link down here to a Pinterest pin that John Brieger started, who we've had on the show before, about sell sheets, some examples of sell sheets. So you might want to do something like that. Pinterest is really good. Use your favorite search engine and search for board game sell sheets. You will find plenty of them out there. So I just kind of wanted to look at some of that information, cover some of that. So to quote some of the information from the article that Luke wrote, communicate your core information about your game, the little logo shot, which is the number of players, the duration, and the kind of age level of the game. Make sure your contact information is on there. Highlight the hook. Highlight the special features of your game. I prefer to see pictures of the game and imagery. Make your game the hero of that sell sheet. And then you describe some of the mechanics. Someone has to be able to look at your sell sheet within 2 or 3 minutes, get an idea of how the game plays out and what the game's about, and then want to ask you some questions about it. That's the goal of your sell sheet, is to get someone to come back and communicate with you more about your game. You'll do more in the conversational selling aspect of this than just the sell sheet. So get them to ask you questions. Okay? So again, as always, thank you for watching Shop Talk. If you have any suggestions, hit me up on Twitter or anything for episodes, send me a direct message. I'll try to cover whatever I can. Links down below for what I've just discussed here. Hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome. And tell your friends about Shop Talk. And I hope to see you soon. Right? Have a good time and enjoy convention season. See ya.